Growing old terrifies you, doesn't it?
Nothing terrifies me, because nothing is beyond my ability to change. What about you? Still wasting your evenings in front of a television set? You're of little use to your clan. You might as well be of some use to me.
Open this cage and I'll show you just how useless I am.
When they come alive, evil can't survive. Hey guys, Solord here, back in with another edition of Throwback Thursdays. We are on number 10, I believe, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Kenner Gargoyles Hudson figure. This guy came out in, I want to say 95, maybe tail end of 94, no pun intended, because gargoyles have tails. Now, originally, I was planning on this week's Throwback Thursday to be the original Raven Spawn from the McFarlane Toys Spawn series, I want to say 22 alternate realities, because I had the new Raven Spawn on order from Target.com, and that was supposed to show up pretty soon here as the time this video is going to be posted. Should be either tomorrow or Saturday. We'll see how that goes. But unfortunately, this past weekend, we lost Mr. Ed Asner, the voice behind Hudson's character in the Gargoyles animated series. So, to pay tribute to him, I decided to bend the rules a bit. I typically base my Throwback Thursdays around new releases of the older versions of figures I have. So Raven Spawn, I would review the original one, and then shortly after I would review the new one. NECA hasn't shown, keyword shown, a Hudson figure yet for their Gargoyles Ultimate line, but that does not mean they don't have one done or close to done, and I hope they get him done soon, because I'd really like to get an updated version of this character. He was a friggin' badass in the show. Like, top 10 super awesome older characters in an animated series, I think. Right up there with Grandpa Max from Ben 10 for me. I was a kid, that's what I grew up with. Sue me. But I have to say, as far as the Gargoyles cast go, I think the only other major player that's passed away since that show's come out is the voice behind Macbeth, who was also Gimli and Treebeard in the Lord of the Rings movies from the early 2000s. So, other than that, I think Halcyon Renard, Fox's dad, if you remember the character Fox, her dad, he kind of had a Professor X hover chair. I think he passed away as well, but I think Macbeth was the first one to pass on to the next life. That said, even though it sucks, and I have to be honest here, this hits me pretty hard in the feels because I haven't felt this bummed out over a celebrity passing since, I want to say Stan Lee or Adam West, one of those. Because in my lifetime, I have experienced that and Robin Williams. So, yeah, this one was a little bit harder for me to kind of cope with and get through. But on the bright side, Ed Asner did live to be at 91 years old, so he lived a long and what I imagine a happy and pretty awesome life. I mean, he was in Gargoyles, he was in the Disney Pixar film Up, he was also in The Wild Thornberrys, which I just watched a couple of weeks ago on Nickelodeon Rewind. And he was also Granny Goodness in the DC Animated Universe from Bruce Timm, and I think J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man animated series. If you watch my J. Jonah Jameson Legends review from last week, I did put a little clip in the beginning, which I plan on doing the same here. Because there wasn't a toy commercial with this guy in it. So that's kind of interesting. But rest in peace, Ed Asner. You were an awesome guy, and we're going to miss you. But That being said, let's get to the review at hand. This awesome Hudson figure, which there wasn't a lot of Hudson figures in this Gargoyles line. There was a variant, Rainstorm Hudson, which I actually have because, well, I think I paid all of $15 for it, and it's not an easy figure to find. I don't have the axe for it, but I do have it complete with its wings and tail, so that's good enough for me. It did not have the kind of action features that this guy had. I think it just squirted water or something, but that figure is in storage because I don't have space to display all of my gargoyles. Unfortunately, I would like to one day, but I also don't have them all, so I don't have to worry about that just yet. Other than that, I think there was a vinyl figure from Applause and a PVC figure also from Applause, which was made into key rings and all kinds of other knick-knacky type stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff for Hudson, to say the very least. Definitely not as much as Goliath. I think Hudson and Brooklyn, as far as the Gargoyle clan goes, the core members, were the most underrepresented, along with Bronx. They each only had 2 figures. So, with that said, let's take a look at this figure. I blabbed on long enough. I think it's pretty good for the time. I will say Hudson in the show had a much bigger beard and longer hair and a bigger gut, but I can only imagine these toys were based off some concept art. They weren't based on the final character designs that were used in the series, which I think is why the Rainstorm Hudson, I think that one has a little bit better of a body. That and he doesn't have a gimmick in his waist here. But as far as this guy's articulation goes, his head will rotate. His arms do move up and down. He does have an elbow joint, but it is just kind of floppy. We'll get into that. He does have a waist, but it is kind of like your old school Masters of the Universe waist. Again, we'll get into that. His hips do move forward and back a little bit. He's got the legalese on the outside of his leg there. That's interesting. That's usually on the inside. As you can see, Hudson is also the only gargoyle to wear pants. I find it weird he's got pants and a loincloth. That's like wearing socks and sandals. It's just something not right about it. His tail also rotates. And his wings are also on hinge joints, unlike the Stone Armor Goliath I took a look at, I want to say a month ago now. The wings are just on hinges. They don't have a wing flapping gimmick, which is odd that they gave Goliath and Demona wing flapping gimmicks, but nobody else. And if you're wondering about the wings, how they're connected to the figure, they just have these little hinge joints. Now be careful with these. You don't want to stress and break these, but they're pretty solid, I think. They are not the tightest fitting things ever, but that's okay. They do hold their pose, and they do peg in really easy. So I wouldn't say there's a whole lot to worry about with these wings. And they have a little bit of extra detail on the bottom. They're a little bit tattered and torn, which I don't think was a thing in the show. I don't remember it anyways. But because he is an older gargoyle, that does make sense. And I will say, of the line, I think he's got the best detail on the wings. Him and maybe Brooklyn or Broadway. Although they're closer to Goliath. This guy actually looks like he's got some shading in there. And much like Goliath, he does not have the black on the backs of the wings. It's just his skin tone. But that's whatever. Even though it does have the membrane sculpted right here, at least. Should be sculpted on the outside too. Oh, it is. So if you wanted to, you could paint this black to be more show accurate. Because unlike Goliath, he does have the sculpted lines, so that would be a little easier to do. But as far as his accessories go, he only comes with the one, which has been sitting in front of you for the longest time. His sword, which he does use a lot in the show. He's the only gargoyle to really wield a weapon. I'm not sure why that is. Probably because he is an older guy. And he's not as strong, I don't think, as someone like Goliath. So having a sword kind of gives him a little bit of an edge in battle. And it is accurate to the show. It just doesn't have any paint on the handle, which is to be expected. It is 1994 or 5 or whenever this came out. But it is show accurate, so that's cool. So if you wanted to make a custom Hudson, you could literally just use this sword. Maybe when that NECA one comes out, I'll do some funny dual-wielding stuff with it. But it does fit in his hand. His hand has a groove made specifically for the sword. And you have to put it in there a certain way, or else it's going to push itself out. But the action feature on this guy is you squeeze his leg. He kind of has this sword slashing action. A little bit overcomplicated, I think. I would have just preferred if you squeezed the leg and his arm went up and down, and they didn't give him this floppy elbow joint. I think that would have been a little better, at least aesthetically, because I love the sculpt of the arm on this side. It's nice and smooth and doesn't have this pin sticking out at you like a sore thumb, but they were trying something different. I get that. I can respect that. But I think the phrase, keep it simple, stupid, would have been helpful here. Just to squeeze the legs and his arm goes up and down. But I do appreciate the attempt at something a little different. And also, Hudson's got this gnarly scar on his eye. Let's take a look at that head sculpt before we jump to some comparisons here. He just looks gnarly, man. Looks like he's seen some stuff. Definitely seen some stuff. So, definitely one of my favorite figures from this line. I really loved Hudson as a character. I think him and Goliath were probably the most developed in the series as far as the core Gargoyle clan. And then after that, I would say maybe Brooklyn. Demona was probably the most developed character, period, along with Macbeth. But Demona appeared a lot more often, I think. She's just a butch. Oh, that being said, let's take a look at some comparisons. First up, and because it's the only gargoyle I have reviewed on this channel so far, blasphemy, here is Hudson next to the Stone Armor Goliath from a few weeks ago on Throwback Thursdays now, and I think they scale alright. Hudson was a little bit shorter than Goliath, but not by a whole heck of a lot. And a funny side note, I believe Hudson was rumored to be Broadway's biological father. I kind of figured that out on my own, not because they're fat. Okay, maybe it was because they were a little fat, but the little horns on Hudson's head kind of reminded me of Broadway's kind of horn mohawk thing he had going on, so I assumed there was some relation there. I just wasn't expecting it to be a father-son one, which was never addressed in the show. Who knows, maybe we'll take a look at Broadway after Demona. We shall see. And last, but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus and the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn. So with that being said, time to wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and much like the Stone Armor Goliath I took a look at a few Throwback Thursdays ago, yeah, this one isn't perfect either, but to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd say if you are collecting this line, this is definitely one of the ones to get, for three really good reasons. A, he's one of the main characters. B, he's a total badass in the show. And C, he's voiced by Ed Asner. That's three really good reasons to pick this guy up. I'll give you one better. Out of all the figures to come with weapons, this guy's actually supposed to come with a weapon, and he comes with a show-accurate one, if that. So with that in mind, I would definitely recommend this to anyone picking up these Gargoyles figures. I think he's one of the better ones. Yeah, I'm not crazy about the action feature, but I do respect Kenner for trying to do something different. Although I do wish they just kept it simple and had it to where you squeeze the legs and his arm goes up and down as opposed to the waist spinning and the elbow moving and being loose on top of that. I just would have rather the right arm looked as nice as the left. But I've always been an aesthetic guy over function and or articulation anyways, so that's just personal preference. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Throwback Thursday. Stay tuned. I am going to do that Raven Spawn one, and most likely the Spawnmobile one, because one of you asked for it. You like to put me through hell, some of you. But, as always, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell so you know whenever I upload more content to the channel. Gotta show that algorithm who's boss, right? And if you haven't already, hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions, where you can see a little tribute I did to Ed Asner a few days ago as of the time this video is being posted. And don't forget to leave a comment in the comments section below. Let me know what you think of this guy. Whether you want it, love it, or love it, because I deny you to hate this because it's Gargoyles. And on this channel, it's illegal to hate this show and this line because it's Gargoyles, dang it. But if you do, keep the comment civil, because the world sucks enough as it is. Especially when you lose greats like Ed Asner, man. Rest in peace. And until next time, I will catch you guys later.